Hey guys, Simon and Alex here from Top Tennis Training, and in this video we're going to fix a very common problem that happens to many players around the world, and we're going to solve it with an instant tennis tip.
Welcome to video number 1 from our instant tennis tips with David Ferrer. In the course, David Ferrer gives a lot of tennis tips for technique, tactics, the way he hits different shots such as the serve, the return and the ground strokes. Here we're going to cover the ground strokes. We're going to cover the forehand, and in particular the forehand swing being too big, just like you see on the WTA Tour. So the WTA forehand, the big swing, the swing that lags behind the back, and it's a swing that is actually very limited in topspin. It may give you a lot of power, but it actually causes a lot of problems with direction, and it causes you the inability to topspin the ball properly.
So as you can see there, Alex is breaking the line of his body, so his racket is going behind the line of his body. So as he's taking it back, this racket is now too far behind his body, which will cause him most of the time to hit the ball slightly late, and it could cause the racket, the ball to travel off either to the right or to the left, because it's very hard to control the racket face at contact when you're coming that far from behind the body.
Just as Simon said, the racket is breaking the line of the body, but it's also causing my swing to become too big. So having a swing that's too big, meaning that my arm is actually traveling far away from my body, meaning the swing is too big. Now, when I make contact, there's actually a really big distance between my racket and the ball, the oncoming ball. So if I want to then time my forehand and actually hit an effective shot, it becomes very difficult for me to time the shot because it's traveling from such a far distance.
So Alex, in your experience, what kind of problems do you see and issues happen when players use the WTA style forehand?
So there are a few issues there. So what happens is, because you're taking the racket back across the line of your body, then when you're swinging to get the ball, because you want to make contact with the ball, you start swinging in a straight line. So the first thing we do is we start swinging in a straight line, which in fact causes the ball to become a very flat ball. So in order to achieve spin, we need to let the racket drop under the ball. We need to have a soft wrist that allows the racket to drop under the ball, and then we're brushing it up. This becomes very difficult when you're coming from this side to then come across and hit the ball, and also to be dropping it and coming across. It doesn't happen. So most of the WTA forehands, they actually tend to be really flat. And the reason actually they are flat is because they're trying to get more power. So a flat ball travels a lot quicker than a ball with topspin. So by doing that forehand, they're actually trying to create more power, and in turn they're not able to then after create a topspin. So because you're looking for power, you're going for that forehand, the really far take back. You're going to hit a harder shot because of that, but then you're going to struggle generating topspin when you need it on other shots. So it's very important to have a technique that you can use on all different shots. So it's not just, you know, on that flat one when you're trying to hit a really big forehand, but also a forehand that's not going to break down during a rally situation, when it's being pushed and someone hits hard at it, when you need to lift the ball with topspin, when you need to create angle. So all those require a topspin, which is very difficult to generate when that racket is that far behind you.
Now there, Alex, when you were using that style of forehand, a lot of the shots were going off to the left and to the right of the court. It was hard for you to direct the ball.
That's
Why
correct.
is that?
Yeah, so what happens is, because I'm taking the racket back and I'm swinging forward, now the line of my take back and the shot, so the path of my racket, becomes a semicircle. So I take the racket back here, and you can almost draw that semicircle as I'm hitting that ball all the way across. This is a very common issue with players that take that racket back that far. And when you have that semicircle path, what happens now is, I'm now finding it very difficult to get the exact contact point for me to hit the ball into the direction that I need to. Because now the contact point is actually very short, because now if I hit it a little bit earlier, the ball goes off there. If I hit it a little bit later, the ball goes off there. So my hitting zone becomes very small. It's only during that contact here that I can make the ball go straight, and then everywhere else it starts to go off that line of the direction that I need to hit it at. So in order to now achieve an easier direction for me to be able to hit a shot repeatedly across court or down a line, I would need to extend my direction, so I need to extend through my hitting zone, and therefore this kind of take back and moving across will not work. So I need to have more of a linear swing, so a swing that's on the right side of my body, that's here, and a swing that will allow my racket to travel forward rather than travel in a semicircle, limiting my hitting zone and limiting where I can hit the ball on the other side. So it becomes very difficult for me to actually time it so that I can hit into the desired direction, and I'll end up missing a lot of shots. Now there, I'm striking the ball a little bit too early, so the ball is going straight off my racket to the left. I'm dragging that ball because of my turn. I still am doing the rotation, because rotation also gives me power. I'm not just going to use my arm, and therefore that rotation is actually dragging that ball to the left, and it's a very common problem that a lot of the players experience, because they're rotating, but actually their arm is rotating with the body, therefore creating that semicircle, and a common problem is dragging that ball out to the left. Now on that one I was actually quite late, because my take back is very big. I'm late on the ball, especially on a faster surface like a grass court. When you take that racket back that far, you're then struggling to meet the ball in a perfect contact point that you need to get the ball to the right direction. So therefore my balls were going late and they were coming off to the right. So again, if you're experiencing those problems where you're hitting the ball very late, that could be an issue with the swing. Therefore the swing could be taken back too far, and the line, the path of your racket might be wrong. It might be a semicircle rather than a straight line.
Now another big issue with this type of forehand is if you're a little bit late, if your timing is not perfect and you're hitting the ball constantly on the side of your body or even slightly behind, now all the stress of the ball and the contact point is now on my wrist, my elbow and my shoulder, so the risk of injury increases.
It also increases due to the fact that you may want to lift the ball sometimes, and you may want to apply topspin, and because of that path you're trying to generate some kind of topspin in the wrist, but because of the path of your racket being completely linear, it becomes very difficult to do so, and therefore by you trying to drop the racket off that linear path of the arm becomes very difficult, and you can actually injure your wrist as well. So the risk of injury is a little bit higher during those strokes, because the inability to hit the certain strokes such as the topspin or that late ball. So Simon, this is a problem that happens to players all around the world. Yep. Is there a way to fix it? Well, we have an instant tennis tip that will help you solve it. So when you're preparing for the shot, when we see the WTA style forehand, where it's breaking the line of the body, the racket is now behind my body's line. You can see it from the front of the camera. If we compare that to the ATP style forehand, the players like Federer, Verdasco, Nadal and Dimitrov, the guys with the biggest forehands on the ATP tour, these are the guys who keep the racket on the side of their body. This side of their body, so it never breaks that line. So a very instant way that you can do this is simply by holding your elbow with your non-hitting hand. So if you're a right-handed player, you're holding your left hand on your right elbow like this, and this is going to keep that racket now and the arm from going behind my body's line. If I want to go further, it's going to be very hard for me to break my body's line with holding this position. And what this actually does is it actually reduces the swing length. So a big swing, remember, is how far your arm travels away from your body. Now if I just turn, this is actually not a big swing, this is just a turn. So I can still get my racket back here with a turn, but the racket hasn't left my body. Like the elbow is still in the same width away from my body as it is from here as it is here. Well, if with a WTA forehand, a lot of the players actually increase that width between the elbow and the side. By holding the hand here, you're actually reducing the distance between the elbow and the side, and you maintain that distance, and that's the important part, is maintaining that distance between the elbow and the body.
The other great thing that this drill does is it also helps aid the rotation. So when I'm preparing, now I have to turn my left shoulder if I want to get the racket back any distance. And then if I want to make contact, I can't just go with my wrist like this. I have to actually open up my shoulders. So rotation backwards, rotation forwards.
So it helps with the length of swing, it helps us with the rotation, and it actually is going to help you get the timing that you need, because the swing is not going to be as big. So it's a win-win situation, and this is a tip that you can start using straight away. First of all, maybe you could do it with a player feeding you, then actually hitting the ball. Still try and finish the shot exactly the same way as you would on a normal stroke, but the only thing that's different is you're holding yourself by the elbow over here, and you're not allowing that racket to slip back, the elbow to slip back too much. Now, another very important tip is when you are taking that racket back, is to maintain the racket face and the top of the racket facing upwards. What you don't want to do is to get here and then actually start to drop here, because now again, that's going to create that the racket going back behind my body. I want to have the top of the racket facing upwards, and from here I then go and I maintain my stroke, my shot. So it's take back with the racket up, then hit the shot. So now let's have a look at me doing it in action.
So Alex, what are the advantages of keeping the racket on this side of our body?
So because the racket is on this side, so the obvious reason is now the line becomes a lot easier to achieve. I'm going straight from back to forward, and therefore it's easier for me to extend through the contact, making my contact a lot longer. So if Simon now puts the ball position, now it's going straight, it's still going straight, it's still going straight, and then it's finishing. And it's the same thing again. I catch it here, and I can continue going forward because that line is straight. If I now do the semi-circle, I hit and then I come off that line. That contact zone becomes very small. So keeping the contact zone, very easy to do with keeping the racket on the right. Another thing is it's easier to drop the racket. So from here, I'm actually able to drop the racket down. It's a lot easier to create topspin because the racket is not lagging from behind. I'm actually allowing the lag to happen from the right, drop under, come up with my racket, the butt of the racket, and then as I'm making contact, I can then create the easy topspin. So topspin becomes easier, the direction also becomes easier, and it's exactly the things that we're trying to fix when we're hitting the WTA forehand, the problems with WTA forehand, and ones that you perhaps could be struggling with. And because my hand is actually securing the elbow and it's not allowing that arm to slip back, I'm now using my body rotation, the coil and anti-coil motion, which should also help me get my body synchronized with my arm, so my arm is not traveling by itself. So for those of you who are struggling to achieve power, this could be the reason that your arm could be traveling faster than your body. You're generating the power from your arm. So here I'm going to try and generate power with my body, because actually my arm and body are all part of one, because I'm holding this elbow here with my left hand. Now I'm going to try and mix my normal forehand with one holding onto my elbow. Try and actually get it ingrained into my muscle memory, because muscle memory at the end of the day is what is going to kick in when you're playing your points, when you're under pressure, and that's exactly what we want, where we want our forehand not to break down. So this is what I want to practice right here. I actually just won the point there because of my new found forehand. Try it out yourself and see if it works for you. So thank you guys for watching. This was video number 1 from the Instant Tennis Tips with David Ferrer.
Now video number 2 will be coming out in the next couple of days, so if you aren't subscribed to our email list, make sure you go and do that right away, and you'll get that video as soon as we release it.
Thank you guys for watching. Share the video, press the like button under the video, and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you all very soon.